So even though I don't have anybody actually watching right now, I'm going to give this a shot because this is the first time that I've tried this. This is kind of an experiment. If I like the way it turns out, I'm going to keep doing it. If I don't, well, I might keep doing it anyway just because I'm a bit contrary. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Eagle. I am the publisher, the line editor, one of the writers, and one of the artists for No Earth Comics. And that's the page you're watching, so I'm hoping you're already semi-aware of that. We've been around for about 2 years now and slowly building momentum. And this is not an easy business to break into, and so this has taken a little bit of time. Today, what I want to talk about is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is diversity in comics. And the reason that I'm starting out with this one is because Marvel Comics, through bleedingcool.com, released some statements today concerning the reason why a lot of their lines are failing. And I think they've got a little bit of a wrong take on this. First off, let's establish something. Diversity in comics is important. There's no other way to put that. In order to reach the widest range of readers possible, you have to appeal to the widest range of readers possible. You have to do things that are including everybody. Your work has to be inclusive. Your comics have to be inclusive. You have to put together something that is going to have a universal appeal. And in the end, it really doesn't matter as much what the character is as much as what the character's about, what the story's about. As long as the stories have universal appeal, then they're going to resonate with whoever reads them. And that's something that a lot of writers miss. They wind up thinking that they have to cater to a specific audience, and that's not true. What they have to do is create a universal story, and then they can cater to whoever they want to after that. But the story itself has to be interesting. The story itself has to be universal. So Marvel is concerned that they have lost a lot of audience, that they've had extremely bad sales on a lot of their titles, and they're trying to figure out what they're doing wrong. And this is coming down to, it's not that you tried to do diverse stories. That's a good thing. It's not that you tried to do new and different characters. That's a good thing. It's not that you tried to be inclusive with female characters and characters of color. That's a good thing. You forgot the most basic thing about a comic book, and that is a good story. And if you don't have the good story, you're not going to get the views. You're not going to get the readers that are interested in how the story develops. It's not that people don't want to try new things. Comics are about new things. Comics are about, let's put this bluntly, comics have been progressive and liberal since they started. They started as a group of marginalized people writing power fantasies. And they've gone progressive ever since. Comics have been about social issues since the 60s. Comics have been about racial diversity since the 50s and 60s. Comics have been about gender diversity. There's nothing new and different in this. The difference is that if the characters and the stories are not good, you're going to see a sales slump. Stop blaming it on the fans. Stop blaming it on the distribution. Stop blaming it on people not wanting to see something new. You know, we're geeks. Strong female characters have been part of our culture. Since Princess Leia said, "You look a little short for a stormtrooper." This is not the answer. This is not where we are as a culture. And by culture I mean the comic book culture. What we are about is wanting stories that tell us something interesting, make us think, make us enjoy ourselves. We don't want stories that preach to us. And that's where Marvel has really, really dropped the ball in the last 5 years. The reboots, the retcons, all the rest of it, that's just symptoms of the problem. The problem is we need better stories. One of the things I want to point out here is No Earth Comics has 3 comics out right now. All 3 of them have a strong female lead. One of them, the strong female lead, is a person of color. We're not saying that we want to be a diverse company. What we're doing is simply writing characters, and those characters happen to be diverse. There's no reason to try and force the diversity because it's already there. There's no reason to try and shoehorn in a checklist, because if you just let the writers have their head, let the writers do what they want to do, you're going to see the diversity. You're going to see people doing things that resonate with them because, well, people write what they know. And as long as you've got a good group of writers, as long as you have a good group of creators, you're going to see organic diversity. You're going to see organic different takes on the same subject. You're going to see this, and this is important as comics move forward, because right now Marvel and DC are fighting for a ever-shrinking share of an ever-shrinking market. Comic sales are down, and the only way that comic sales are going to come back is if they start appealing to a wider audience, if they start appealing to something besides the fanboys who've been reading comics for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Yeah, I'm old. Never mind that. So this is part of comics' intention, is they have to branch out. They have to find new markets. They have to realize that the comic book shop is not the end-all and be-all of comic marketing. And in order to do that, diversity becomes important. Diversity becomes something that is to be strived for. But it's got to be organic. It's got to look natural. It's got to be, you can't simply slap a different skin color on a character and expect that to fly with the fans. It's not going to happen. You have to create a compelling character. You have to create a compelling story. You have to create a compelling reason to give this a try. And if you don't, then you're sitting there looking at low sales and you're trying to find somebody to blame it on. And the truth is, you need to look in the mirror for that. If your comic company, one of the 2 biggest comic companies in the world, is not managing to push this particular group of comics, the problem is not the fans. The problem is not the distribution center. The problem is not the retailers. The problem is the comics themselves. And this is something that is going to be interesting to watch over the next year, because Marvel has already said that they're going back to meat and potatoes comics. And that's unfortunate because, okay, one of the things that I decided when we were setting up No Earth was that we were going to have legacy characters. that we were going to have characters die, that we were going to have characters retire, that we were going to have characters pass on their mantle to other characters. And when we kill them, they will stay dead, by the way. One of the scripts we've got coming up is called Eulogy. And in Eulogy, we're starting out with the character already dead. Another script that we've got coming up is called Liberated, and it is sort of a sequel to Eulogy in the fact that it's set in the future and it involves a clone of the original character in Eulogy. It's not her. They're not going to use the same personality. It's not a duplication. It's simply a different take on the character. But the Eulogy book, the character is dead. So what we're dealing with is the aftermath. What we're dealing with is the attempts to replace her. What we're dealing with is the attempts for her legacy to be examined. What does her legacy mean? What does her existence and her death mean? And this is part of the basis for why No Earth exists, is we want to produce comics that advance. One of the problems with the comic companies, and this includes Marvel, this includes DC, is the characters have become stagnant. And the reason that they're stagnant is real simple. They're stagnant because of marketing. They're not stagnant because that's what the fans want. They're not stagnant because that's what the world expects. They're stagnant because of marketing. You can't change Superman's costume too much, because then all of the marketing that's out there is in jeopardy. And every time that they've changed Superman's costume, they've had to change it back. Batman's costume the same way. Spider-Man, Thor. Thor's costume always has to be recognizably Thor, even if you add long sleeves and chainmail. And in the end, the classic person in that suit pretty much has to remain. Now, as an indie publisher, this is something I don't have to worry about. It's something Marvel does have to worry about. What Marvel just tried to do was change everything. And no, that's not the way you do it. You change one thing, then you change another thing, and you let your world evolve. You do not sit there and try and force your world to suddenly be diverse. Historically, comics have not been diverse, and that needs to change. But there's right ways to do it, and there's wrong ways to do it. And Marvel is now on the receiving end of the absolute empirical evidence that they've been doing it wrong. And that's called sales reports. There's no way around it. There's no way to avoid the fact that it was a failed experiment. And instead of saying, well, we didn't do that well, this entire article seeks to blame the fans. Good tact. See how that works out for you. Thank you for watching. I had fun. I think we'll be doing this again.